Okay, so this week's Parsha is Parsha's Lech Lecha, and as well we've begun a new Jewish month. The Jewish month is Cheshvan, and sometimes it's referred to as Mar Cheshvan, the bitter Cheshvan. Why is it called the bitter Cheshvan? What is unique about this month that we are just begun? What's unique about this month? There's no holidays and no sad days. There's nothing in Cheshvan. Every other month there's something. Tishrei is filled with the high holidays and Sukkot. Kislev has Chanukah. Teves at least has a fast day. Shvat has Tu B'Shvat. Ador has Purim. Nisan has Pesach. Iyar has Lag BaOmer, Sivan has Shavuos, Tammuz has a fast day, Av is a fast day, Elul, we're gearing up for the high holidays. There's something in every month. Cheshvan has absolutely nothing. So then the question that you have to ask yourself, every month, if there's something in that month, that means that's what we're working on as Jews in that month. If you have Pesach in Nisan, it means we're working on accessing spiritual energies of freedom. We're working to become freer people. That's the job for the month. This last month, Tishrei, was to come back to Hashem and do tshuva and to be happy with Hashem and leave Hashem with a tremendous feeling of closeness to Him. Chanukah will have its avoda, will have its work. Tishrei, there's absolutely nothing to focus on. And it would appear to be a month that there's nothing to do, which cannot be. There has to be something to do, but we don't have a clue on how to go. There's no clues over here. So that is going to be an important thing we have to discuss today. And as well, now that we start Parshas Lech Lecha, we're introduced to the patriarchs and the matriarchs. And we believe that when we read the Torah portion every week, it talks to us. It talks to us and it guides us. And now that we're back to being with our ancestors, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, for this next few months, and Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, they have lessons they want to teach us. So we go to our bubbies and zaydis, and they're going to teach us lessons of what what can help us in our growth. And I think today's got a very, very special message as well. So Avram Avinu, we know, just to give you a little bit of an overview of what's going on, we were introduced to him last week as the son of Terach. We don't know too much about Avram until now. Right now, Avram is in a city called Haran, which is not in the land of Israel. And at this point, Avram is already 75 years old. He already came to the recognition that there's a God in the world. He's the only human being who believes in a one God. He does not believe in the pagan mentality of the world and the idolatry. He has already done two significant events in his life. He was thrown into the furnace by Nimrod and survived that. Prior to that, he had to run into hiding from him. For a number of years, he had to hide. And he was steadfast in his belief in Hashem. So now he's developing a following in the city of Haran. He has brought people who didn't know anything about God. He's teaching them about God. He's making big inroads and bringing God back into the world. And then Hashem gives him a test, and he says, you have to leave. You have to leave. You have to leave your comfortable place where you're doing kiruv and reaching out to other Jews, not to other non-Jews rather. You're making them into believers. And now from this very successful thing, I want you to go to another place. He doesn't tell him initially where it is. He finally realizes it is Eretz Canaan, which would become Eretz Yisrael. And he's there and he begins to do more work for God. And we discuss it and we see he's quite a bit of traveling around the country. And things look to be good. Okay, so I got a new place and I'm beginning to do work over there. However, that doesn't last very long. And of all the places in the world that Avram went to, the one place he went to, the land of Canaan, is the one place that is struck with a terrible famine. The rest of the world is doing fine. But the land of Canaan, the land that God sent him to, is now cursed. as it were, and there's no food, there's no rain, there's nothing, and he has a big problem. So what does he do? He goes down to Egypt to go there because the hunger is very strong. And as he goes down there, there's all kinds of issues because it's a very immoral place, Egypt. It's the bastion of the descendants of Ham, who we know from the Teva, from the Ark, were very bad in immorality and couldn't control their desires. Avram was afraid that the custom in Egypt was that if you saw a very pretty woman, you, God forbid, wouldn't be immoral and sleep with a married woman. What you did was you killed the husband, so now you could live with the woman not in sin. And Avram understood that Sarah was a beautiful woman, and this could happen. And he told his wife to lie. And when they ask who you are, say you're my sister and not my wife. And so it was. Paro took her, and assuming that she was an eligible woman, and then God punished Paro until he let Avram go back. And we're told that Avram leaves the land of Egypt with lots of wealth. With lots of wealth. I don't want to get into all the details. That's not the main thing I want to talk about today. But so now that he leaves Egypt, he goes back to the land of Canaan. And now what I want to focus on, and that's what you have on your sheet now, chapter 13, verse 3 says the following. It says, Vayelech l'masa'av, and he went on his travels, which is a very unusual word, minegeh, from the south, vad beis kel, until beis kel. Until the place where he pitched his tent in the very beginning, when he first came to the land of Israel. Bein beis kel ubein ai, between the cities of beis kel and ai. So the two words in the verse, or the one word that's very odd, is the second word, lemasa'av, to his travels. It's saying vayelech, and he went to his travels. I mean, what kind of talk is that? He went to his travels? We went to his travels. He went. He traveled. He went to his travels. So because of that, the Talmud says, and Rashi brings down, and this is the second source, it says, when he went down, when he returned from Egypt, when he returned from Egypt, L'Eretz Canaan, to go back to the land of Canaan, he went and slept over in the inns where he went to on the way down to Egypt. In other words, he stopped at different hotels going down, Quality Inn, Beersheba, whatever he was going to, and all the ways he stopped on the way down. When he came back, he stopped in the same hotels. What do we need to know that for? So it's what? To teach you derech eretz, to teach you derech eretz. Good behavior. So you shouldn't change the people who hosted you. You know, if you come down to certain hotels, now, of course, he came down as a poor man, so I guess you go to poor man, you can't quite get into the Sheraton and the Hiltons. Couldn't get into there. You probably were at, the 1-star flea bag inns that were there. And on the way back, he was a rich man. Figure, well, maybe he'll go to nicer hotels. Says, no, I'm going to stay with the same ones. And that's a lesson in Derech Eretz. Derech Eretz to say, people are going to figure, he went on the way down, he went to this one, the way up, he didn't go to that one. Maybe it wasn't a good hotel, maybe it wasn't good. No, he said, be a loyal customer. That's Derech Eretz, to be a loyal customer. When I was in need, you were good enough for me. Now that I'm not in need, you're not good enough for me? It's a very hurtful feeling when somebody gives you, and you'll see in a minute more so in a minute. See in a minute that what the guy gave you lodgings, and you needed lodgings. They gave you lodgings. Now that I'm a rich man, I don't need you anymore. Goodbye. That's not Derech Eretz. If when you were in need, he was good enough, he should still be good enough. But it gets accentuated more in the second interpretation. The second interpretation says, "B'chazarasa paro hakafasav." When he returned, he paid back his debts. What do you mean? Well, it was a hunger in the land. He didn't have any money. So he goes down to the 1-star hotel, and he says, okay, it'll cost you, 5 livras. Thank God. It's okay, it's a tough time, so I'll trust you.
How long was he in Egypt for?
Not long. A few months. Very short period of time. Very short period of time. So he incurred a number of debts. Every hotel he went to, he couldn't pay. So he incurred a lot of debts. On the way back, he paid back the debts. Okay, that's the second interpretation. Now you can appreciate the first interpretation better, because they not just they gave him lodging for free. They trusted him. I don't know how many people would do that. A stranger comes to your hotel. He has foreign license plates. He says, I ain't got no money. Will you trust me? When I come back, I'll pay you. Right. And they trusted him. Now you're a rich man. Yeah, okay, I'll mail him a check, but I'm going to the Hilton. No. If their hospitality was good then, so then their hospitality should be good now. That's their cheretz. It's their cheretz. There's a lot you can learn from that, but I don't want to go that way today. There's a lot you can learn even from that first point. The question I want to do is the second one. The rabbi saying, it's a pasuk, the Torah is going out of its way. Remember, the Torah wrote the extra word lamasa of. They're going on their journeys. He went on his journeys. That extra word is saying, I want to teach you something that's very important for you to know. You know what it was? Avram paid back his debts. Would you think otherwise? Is that such a great thing? Ooh, that's amazing. He paid back his debts. Is that such an astounding thing? That we need a special word to hint to what went on? That's a nice point. But would we think that Avram wouldn't pay back his debts? The first message makes more sense as being an insight. That even though you don't need the cheaper hotels, and I would think, now I got more money, I should spend and go to the nicer hotel and forget about the guys who helped me out. Now that's a moral lesson. That's a good insight. That, you know what, the people who took care of you when you were poor, you should still give them business. Now the Torah has to go out of its way to tell us that. That's important. That I wouldn't have thought otherwise. But just to say, well, and Avram paid his debts. So would I have thought that Avram's a crook? So what is the message of this Rashi? And that's going to be the focal point of today's class. Okay? Get a whole class out of one line in Rashi. Now there's another point that we'll just touch on, and we'll maybe come back to it. There's a famous statement of the Ramban, which I didn't put in because it was late last night. So Ramban over here makes a very important statement in the beginning of the story when he goes down to Egypt. Ramban says, you should know that Avram did a great sin unintentionally when he brought his wife down to Egypt and said that she's his sister, because he was afraid that they would kill him. Rather, he should have had trust in God that Hashem would save him, and he shouldn't have put her in any kind of danger, because Hashem has the ability to help. And then he also says, and even leaving the land of Canaan when it was a famine, that he was commanded to go there from Haran, and he left because of the hunger. That was a sin as well, because Hashem can save people from the death of hunger. So he said he did two sins. He sinned by leaving Canaan in the hunger. He sinned by saying his wife was his sister. And he says, and Baal Mai says, and for this event, Nigzer al Zaro Hagolos v'Risham B'Yad was decreed upon his children to eventually go into Egypt and be slaves in Egypt. So there's a lot over here, and we're not going to be able to get to all this. But what Ramban is saying is Avram, he did a sin, an unintentional sin. He would never intentionally want to do it, but he didn't have enough trust in God. He should have stayed in Eretz Yisrael even though there was no food. To which many people would ask, what are you talking about? If there's no food, you want him to die? Should he die? Right? And but what were his options? To go back to Haran? God said you had to leave Haran. You can't be there anymore. You couldn't go back. So Avram's the only option is go to Mitzrayim. Go to Egypt. There's at least food there. But Ramban says it was a big sin. It was a big sin. He should have had more trust in God.
It wasn't the reason that he went there, that he was losing all his followers, and he wanted to keep them together.
It could be, but God didn't give him a directive to leave. Hashem said, leave Haran and go to the land I will show you. And he showed him it was Israel. So now he's in Eretz Canaan. And Hashem didn't give him any instructions to leave. There were no instructions to leave. Who gave him permission to leave? So I guess I got to take the initiative. I can't just sit here and die.
Yeah, that's normal. You know, you're supposed
Okay.
to, you know, the old story. Someone's stranded on an island and God sends him a plane.
I understand. That makes this Ramban a challenging Ramban to understand. I'm just saying, it's a challenging Ramban. And more than that, we see that because of this, his children, in other words, it seems that Avram had a flaw, a spiritual flaw, and we know any spiritual flaws you have, if you don't, it can get passed down to your children, as it were. And his children end up suffering in Egypt. And you could ask, well, what did they do to deserve that? So, if we have time, we'll come back to this Ramban. I'm being ambitious. It's a very hard Ramban to understand. But what we're going to do now is we're going to... let's review. There's 2 or 3 main issues here. Number 1, what is our Avodas Hashem in the month of Cheshvan, where it appears there's nothing to do in this month? A. B. What is the insight of Rashi saying that he went and paid back his debts? That doesn't seem to be anything so outstanding. And C. How do we understand the Ramban that Avram did a great sin by trying to save his life through natural means? And he's saying he should have what? He should have trusted Hashem, because Hashem can save a person from hunger. He should have trusted him. These are the questions. So we're going to now go through a very beautiful piece from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov in his Likutei Maran, the first volume, the 33rd teaching. It's a very, very long teaching, and we're only going to take a little part of the teaching. And then after we go through that teaching, we'll go then to his student, Rabbi Nosson, who amplifies and connects it to the story of Abraham. And we'll see it's a very beautiful thing. So in source 3, there was really a lot more. I just took a little bit over here. And we'll go through it a little bit. And then we'll see, it was going to be one main point we're going to get today, that if we really understand this point, it can be very helpful for us in many ways. So there's a verse in Koheles, a verse in Ecclesiastes that King Shlomo says. He says in the pasuk, he says, "Biyom tova, on a good day, heyei b'tov." You should enjoy the good on a good day. On a day of good fortune, enjoy the good fortune. A day that things are going good in business today, the customers they're just streaming in. Chaperein, make the sales, enjoy the good fortune. You come home and your spouse is in a good mood today, take advantage of the good fortune and enjoy the day. Your kids are behaving, it's a good day. You're healthy, it's a good day. Take advantage of the good day. Ubiyom ra'ah, but on a bad day, a day of misfortune, re'eh, look. Look. The obvious question is, what do you look at? That's the question. To which Rabbi Nachman starts off, and this is where we're picking it up here. He says, there's 2 kinds of days. Yimei tov, yimei ra. There's good days and there's bad days. And then he brings the verse that describes what King Solomon is saying. On the good days, chaperein, take advantage. And on the bad days, look. So really, even though I put ... we now go backwards in Rabbi Nachman. It's still the same source. I put it on one thing. And now we're going to understand, what does he mean by this? And more than that, what are you supposed to be looking for? What are you supposed to be looking for? So we'll see. He says, you know what you're supposed to look for? You're supposed to look really well. And if you look really well, you will find it's a good day. And how is it a good day? Because you'll find that there's Torah in that day. It's very cryptic. We have to know what that means. So what goodness can be found? It says the Torah. And the Torah is a good thing that day. So let's understand it. So let's just read on. It's right after the ... Okay. If he looks very well, what is it? He says a person has to know Shemalo chol haaretz kvodo, that the whole world is filled with God's glory. V'leis asar panui minei. There's no place on the planet that is empty of Hashem. V'yu memali kol almin. Hashem fills all the worlds. V'sovev kol almin, surrounds all worlds. This is very mystical stuff here. But he's saying Hashem is everywhere. Hashem is everywhere. And there's no place in the world to say that you don't have God's influence totally. Even someone who has to engage in business in the non-Jewish world, and you don't see a Jew all day long. You go to, well, now it's not so applicable. Let's say only we went to China, Hong Kong. Not a lot of Jews have. Now there are, because there's a lot of businessmen. But I'm saying, let's say go to a place where it's very not Jewish. Right? Even such a place, lo yochula hisnatzel v'lomar, you can't give an excuse and say, Yefshir lavadas Hashem yisparach machmas avius v'gashmish shenofel tamilov. You can't say it's impossible to serve Hashem because of all the spiritual insensitivity and materialism. That this is not a godly place. It's a God-forsaken place, and I can't serve God in such a God-forsaken world. Machmas ha'esek she'osek tamilov, because he's constantly involved in business. Business is a very difficult area of life to find God in such a world where many businessmen tell me it's a dog-eat-dog world and people are dishonest, they're trying to rip you off, etc., etc. So he's saying, no, you have to remember that Hashem is mamish everywhere, and there is no place where Hashem isn't, and you can't give any excuses. You can't say, well, if I was back home with all my religious friends and we'll all go to Shul, then I can serve Hashem. But now I'm in this place where it's so ungodly, I can't serve Hashem. So he says, that's not possible. That's not possible. Because there's no place in this world that Hashem doesn't exist. And we know that logically because, as we know, Hashem created the world. He maintains the world. Every proton, neutron, and electron that's running around in the elements of the universe is all directed by Hashem. They don't happen by accident. Hashem is very involved in keeping all those non-Jewish businessmen alive and setting the scenario for you to emerge into that realm. So you cannot say that this is a place where God isn't around and I have nothing to do with Hashem. And he's picking, for his case, the extreme example, being in a place of business A, business itself, and non-Jews B, which is a very ungodly place. He's saying, you cannot say that. And he says, Kikvar Gilul Chachamim, our rabbis have revealed to us, right? Shebechol Dvorim Gashmim, in every physical, material thing, Ubechol Lishonas Ha'akom, and even in the non-Jewish languages, Yocholim Tzabem Alokus, you can find godliness everywhere. Ki below Alokus, because without God, Elim Shum Chizun Klal, they couldn't live at all. Hashem is pumping energy of life into everything in the world. Everything. Anyone. Now, this is a very fundamental concept in Judaism that a lot of atheists wouldn't agree with. A lot of agnostics wouldn't agree with. And you know what? A lot of Jews don't agree with. Because people say, I don't see him. I don't see him, he's not here. Finished. It's nature. But if a person really understands that God created the world has no existence of its own, as the Rambam says, it's the Yesod, it's the first fundamental of Yiddishkeit. You can't be a Jew if you don't understand this. If you don't get this point well, then everything else you're doing as a Jew, you're missing the whole boat. That Hashem has brought everything into existence. Nothing has independent existence in this world at all. So whatever exists, anything, this machine is running now, if it's going to go off on us, it's up to Hashem. He could make the battery go a little longer, a little shorter. He's creating the energy to keep the battery going. The whole way a battery makes a machine go is based on all kinds of scientific principles that God is making operate at this point in time. And they're not just stopping in the middle. So Hashem is totally 100% there and involved in a place where you would think there isn't God. Now once you get that idea, right? So, how did he start off? He said, if you know this idea, so then he says, let's go a little bit further. He says, because as the text in the Nehemiah says, Hashem, you give life to everything. However, he then says, but what could be is that a lot of the life-giving force that Hashem gives is contracted. In other words, it looks like it's hidden. There are places in which God's life-giving force are more overt. We call that a holy place. And there are places where it's not so overt. We call that an unholy place. But even an unholy place has to have God. If God sends a lot of His spiritual energies into a place, then you're going to see a lot more obvious godly revelation in this place. You go to the temple, when we had a temple, it was the most obvious. Miracles were happening all the time there. And that was the place where God allowed His presence to be felt much more. There's other places, for whatever God felt the reason for, to constrict the amount of energy that flows in. And there's less of Hashem that is readily observable. But still, if you're living on a thread, it's pretty important, that thread, isn't it? They say someone's living on a thread. It's got just a little bit of life. But still that thread, the person's still alive. Cut the thread, they're dead. There's a big difference between being dead and living on a thread. You still need that thread. So if Hashem is having a world where it doesn't see there's God over here, it's a bunch of non-Jews, a bunch of business, they're swearing, they're cursing, they're stabbing each other physically and emotionally, and there's no honesty, and there's cruelty, or it's God-forsaken. Those things are God-forsaken place in the world. It's not obvious, but every place has God, and he brings a beautiful proof to this, unbelievable proof. He says, where is tefillin mentioned in the Torah? Does it say the word tefillin in the Torah anywhere? The word tefillin? No. In the Shema it says, what do we call it? Totafos. V'hayu letotafos, it's called totafos. So rabbis are wondering, what kind of Hebrew word is totafos? So Rinachim brings down, he says, some of the rabbis, they're not Hebrew words. He says that there's a language called Kaspi, I'm not sure, Coptic language, I don't know what language that was. There's a word called Tat, which means two, the number two. And in Afriki, I don't know which kind of Africa dialect this was years ago, in the days of the Talmud, this is way back 2,000 years ago in Africa. The word pat, or pas, means the number two. I don't know if that's in the contemporary, how you say number two in Afrikaans or whatever. I don't know if that's... Tue. Okay, well, I guess it's changed. It's changed. Maybe there's some different dialect somewhere in the deeper recesses. But anyway, it's two foreign languages. One means two, the other means two. 2 and 2 is 4. There's 4 sections, 4 parshas in your tefillin. So isn't that odd? Isn't that odd when the Torah is talking about tefillin? A Jewish concept, it's using 2 non-Jewish words to come up with the word, that's where we know tefillin from. So it's very odd. So why did God do that in His Torah? He says, even in non-Jewish languages, there's godliness, He keeps it alive. Even the language has godliness, and therefore it can be incorporated in Torah. And especially by tefillin, the whole point of tefillin, the whole purpose of tefillin, we bind the tefillin on our arms and our head to show that my heart and mind is all thinking about Hashem, that I'm feeling connected to Hashem, which should remind me that Hashem is everywhere, so I'm even going to use foreign language to describe how everywhere Hashem is. Even in the foreign languages I can come up with tefillin. That's the deeper message of tefillin, that wherever you are, there's Hashem. So I'm even going to take a foreign language and use it to describe, because the foreign language is not so foreign. It all comes from Hashem. All languages somehow, in some way or another, come from Hashem.
You say in the brocha, mitzvahs tefillin.
Mitzvahs, okay. So there's the biblical reference to it, and then there's the rabbinic reference, which we have many places. There's biblical references, and then the rabbinic references that elaborate on the concept. And then he finally says, and this is what it says in the Jerusalem Talmud. If a person will say to you, where is your God? Where's your God? Tomer La, you can even answer him, Bikrach Gadol Shebaromi, even in the capital even in Rome. Shenemar, as the pasuk says in Isaiah, Elai korei mi Seir, one calls out to me from Seir. Seir was the inheritance of Esav, and Rome are descendants of Esav. What he means to say is, now if you would ask anybody in the times of the Gemara, what is the least godly place on the planet? It was Rome. Rome is a descendant of Esav, who is the arch rival of the Jewish people. The Jews suffered horrifically under the Roman Empire. Horrifically. And that is the counter-polaric extreme against Judaism was Rome. Don't want to get into the details now. So if somebody asks you, where is God? He's even in Rome. Even in Rome. Even in the Vatican. Even the most anti-Jewish place in the world. Alright? God is over there too. How and what? That's a whole discussion. But that's the idea. Okay. What do we have from this piece so far? And what are we supposed to take out of this piece from Rabbi Nachman? So a person might think that, and remember, what's the whole point of Judaism? We've got to refresh our memories. What's the whole point of Judaism? To develop a relationship with Hashem, get close with Hashem. So people might think, listen, Hashem, you want to have a relationship with me? I have to be in a place that I feel comfortable. You know, if I'm in Jerusalem, I feel Jewish. If I have all these nice places, that's wonderful. And I can only call to God in religious places, and Hashem only calls to me in religious places. But in a lot of places, Hashem abandons me. The Jerusalem Talmud says that even from the lowest place of impurity, Hashem is there, and you can call out to Hashem there. And it only can have you believe that Hashem's presence fills the entire planet. And you can find Hashem even in a place that stands in the antithesis of Hashem. This is a very important fundamental point. Fundamental point of Yiddishkeit. So now, once you know that, now we can attach it back to the first point that he said. So now we've got good days and bad days. Right, let's go back to what King Solomon said. On a good day, take advantage. And a bad day, look. So what's King Solomon saying? He's saying, on a Yom Tov, on a good day, when you're at the Kotel, and you're in Tzfat, or if you're a follower of Rabbi Nachman, you're in Uman, you feel it's a good day. And you can sense you're surrounded by the letters of the Torah. There's Yiddishkeit permeating everywhere. And everything says, this is where Hashem is. Hashem is over here. But then we have a Yom Ra, a bad day. A bad day when you find yourself in Rome or anything else that seems to reject Hashem. And then the letters of Hashem seem to be very dim, and you seem to ask yourself the question, Heichon Elokai, where is my God? Your business collapses, and you say, where is my God? God forbid your health fails you, where is my God? All kinds of sorrows come. You wake up and say, not a day I want to go to. It's a bad day. It's a bad day, a bad hair day, right? So what does King Solomon say? Re'eh, look. Look means you have to believe that even in the most terrible concealment, there is a God who is there, and it's mamish good. There is good hidden in the evil. It's not possible otherwise. Because why? What is generating that evil? It is God. God is sustaining it. If God didn't want it to be here, He just turns off the plug and it evaporates. Now this is a very difficult concept. But do you believe He's all-powerful, masterful, or not? This is a very fundamental point. If you don't believe that God is all-powerful, it means you have tendencies for idol worship. You believe there's other forces other than God. That is a critical point that a person has to understand. Do you believe He created the world? There was nothing there, and He put everything in the world. Well, where did it come from? God has the energy and the ability to make something out of nothing. Well, now the something out of nothing, you're going to say now also that something out of nothing has its own existence and God can't touch it? God made it but can't infect it anymore? This is the whole idea of Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein's monster was subtly hinting to, God can create a world that He can't control. God was smart, like Dr. Frankenstein, but once he created a monster, he can't control it. It's nonsense. If God can create it, he can do whatever he wants. And if he wants, and he wants to bring things, the challenge is our little feeble minds that know so little, we think that we're as clever as God and he has to answer all our questions. But in truth, Hashem is, and wherever Hashem is, wherever he is, it has to be good. Where does the word good come from? The English word good. Where does it come from? You're going to tell me some old English word, or Gott. Well, it comes from the word God. Right? That's how in the secular language you have it. God is everywhere. So there's a bad situation here. So if you're telling me God isn't here at all, and there's nothing, then it can't be good. There's nothing good over here. But if God is here too, then there has to be good, and it's my difficult job to peel away that garment of evil, apparent evil, and find the good that's in there.
The Holocaust?
Yes. In the Holocaust too. If a person believes, and again, people get very emotional about this and not rational. That's why it's a difficult topic to discuss. But let's say Aubrey's impatient. Let me just hear it, and then we'll get back to you.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could know the reason for the bad day so that we could rectify it? You don't even know what you've done wrong.
Okay. So Aubrey's raising a good point. It would be good to know if we did it wrong to know to fix it up. So that's true. So there are ways you can know that, which is beyond the scope of the class today. But the first thing you got to realize, you're already 2 steps ahead of the game. First thing you got to realize is that God is responsible for this. Well, you've assumed 2 steps. That's fine. But a lot of people don't assume those 2 steps. It's a terrible day. I lost money today. It's a terrible day. Wait. Is Hashem here or not? No, Hashem's not here. So it's a terrible day. Well, then we have nobody to talk to. First you got to realize Hashem wanted you to lose that money. Really? Hashem got you to get lost. Oh, well, if Hashem's doing it, Hashem must have a good reason. Now you might want to say, what's the good reason? Well, 1 or 2 things will happen. Either you won't find out the good reason, and you're going to trust God. I know you whatever it is, I guess it's a kapor, whatever. Or maybe you can employ certain techniques, such as measure for measure, things like that. And then maybe figure it out. But to say that this bad situation happened independent of God, that itself is heresy, A, and B, is not logical. It's not logical that God, remember, and I hate to be so brutally honest about this, Adolf Hitler, whatever he did, whatever a capo did, he only did it because he had life force allowing it to happen. It doesn't, just the same way when I'm here and you're here and we daven in the morning, we're nice good Jews, I'm only able to do that because God gives me the life force to do that. And I use my choices. I say, I want to do a good thing today. Hashem, for reasons that we're not going to get into today, he wanted there had to be some kind of very bad event for the Jewish people. The only problem we have is we don't know why. But because we don't know why, doesn't mean it's not so. And that's a very important point you got to realize. You got to realize the smallness of the human mind. That's what Job struggled with. And finally Hashem said to Job, listen, you think you're going to understand this? You tell me how I made the world. When you can tell me how you made the world, then you know the answer to my question too. But you don't know how I made the world. You can't begin to understand where something comes from nothing. So don't admit to the feebleness of your minds. No, I'm upset, I'm angry, and that's the way it is. No, it's not. That's a childish way to do it. Now, okay, we can justify. He's been hurt emotionally. When you're emotionally hurt, you don't think. That's the problem. You're not thinking. That's the only problem. You're not thinking. But there were people in the Holocaust. We would say, according to King Solomon, those were bad days. But Ray, you have to look. You have to look deeply.
The answer's going to be there when you die.
The total answer is in the next world, when your brain is not limited by the body, then you have an expanded conscious mind, you'll understand things you can't understand now. again, these are ideas that are beyond. Just because we can't understand it doesn't mean God won't run it that way. Right? You have to always remember, we raise our little children who don't have a lot of intelligence. Don't we make decisions that they don't like? Right? You know, you have a kid calls from Steels and Bathurst and says, "Ma, pick me up." And Ma says, "I'm really busy, dear. I can't. It's a beautiful day. Why don't you walk?" You hate me. That's not a joke. I'm sure there are parents who hear this. You hate me. It's only a 10-minute walk from Steels to the house. It's a glorious day, 21 degrees Celsius. You don't have a lot of books to carry. I'm busy cooking dinner for you. You hate me. I'm not making up stories here. I remember, Eschata'ai ani maskir hayom. I think I was about 6 or 7 years old, and maybe 8 years old. I remember I wanted a bicycle, like a grown-up. And I had a very wonderful uncle of blessed memory, who didn't have any children, and was almost like a second father, and was always very kind. And I told him I want a bicycle. You know, and being the youngest son of a ben zekunim to my parents, and the only son, so a little spoiled I was, yeah? Not much, we were very poor, not much, a little spoiled. So I wanted that bicycle, right? Came my birthday, he did not give me that bicycle. I was very upset with him. I was very upset with him. How upset was I? Whenever they want to come out, live in an apartment, you had to buzz in to get into the thing. And no one was home, he buzzed, I didn't let him in. I was really, and he was a nice uncle, because he didn't understand how important that bicycle was to me. And I was very angry with him. Eventually he got me the bicycle. Now, that's over a bicycle, it gets so upset. If God takes somebody you love away from you, how upset are you going to be? Again, and you don't have the mind to make the calculations. You don't have the mind to make calculations. The most important idea is to realize for as great as our minds are, it doesn't come to a drop to God's understanding of reality and why He makes reality. And because we have defined reality a certain way, don't hold God to our feeble understandings of reality. And as long as we do, we'll never be able to get along with Him. Right? So therefore, when God makes a day that's bad, what do we have to do? Re'eh, you have to look, you have to believe that there's a terrible concealment, but there is good. It is a good day. It's a good day that has elements of concealment that appear to be bad. The truth of the matter is, it's not bad at all. But the concealment is usually there because of a lot of boneheaded things we've done in our lives until now that allowed that concealment to happen. And that part we quickly forget, right? You know, on a simple, I'm overly simplifying example, you know. God, why did my child die from overdose of drugs? What's wrong with you? And God will say, didn't you notice you spoiled him rotten for 20 years? And that part we conveniently forget. And just know one thing, if you're a God, why didn't you save my kid? Well, you know, there's a lot more to what's going on over here, and maybe you have a certain degree of responsibility too. Maybe part of that concealment is what you created. We're not going to go there. But the point is, and this is a fundamental point, you've got to strengthen your emunah and say there's holiness here. And then Rabbi Nosson says, and when you do that, when you say it has to be good, I may not see it, but I believe it has to. Logically, religiously, it has to be good, and I trust Hashem, then Hashem will allow a certain degree of the evil peel to be peeled away, and some good will come out that you will be able to perceive. You will see the good. It may not be on the old standard of how you defined good. We define good as me being comfortable. That is not the definition of good. We have wrong definitions. We're going through life. We're going through with totally wrong definitions of life. If you don't understand life and you work with those definitions, you get upset with everything. Good is what? Only one good. Closeness to God. It's the only good. Now that can come in a number of ways. It can happen when there are good things happening, blessings are coming, you can feel it, and it can come when there's not blessings. Now, with this idea, okay, this is a fundamental, that's what King Solomon is saying. He's saying you've got to, you've got to look deeply. And you got to be able to say, even when the Nazi has his boot on your throat and you're on the ground like that, there is good there. The first thing that's good is, I'll ask you a question right now. You have a choice. You're on the ground, his boot's on your neck, and he's strong and glorious. God allowed you to be the one on the ground and not the one to put the foot on the Jew. Who is luckier? You can change place with the Nazi. Would you change place with him? Who's the fortunate one? You are. And you still believe in God? Oh, that's good. That's good. Why it had to come to this? Only God knows that. Only God knows that. But I'm able to display my love to God. I still believe in Yeshua. That's not going to take away my belief. And I'm so happy. I'll still make the bracha, Shelo asani goy. You didn't make me a goy. And I'm 10 times more happy to have his boot on my throat than to me to have the boot. And if I wasn't a Jew, I would have listened to Hitler and put a boot on a person's throat. And I'd be a terrible person if I wasn't a Jew. All the other nice people just let 6 million die and did nothing. All the nice, good people of the world. Right? Those are the good people, the moral people, the ones who get Nobel Peace Prizes. I'd rather have the boot on my neck. Thank you. That's the good. Now, of course, we'd rather be sitting in yeshiva and learning. But for whatever reasons, God feels that. And that is the good. You go through situations of life, your health is declining. There is good. As the prophet says, what should a living man complain about? What should a living person complain about? The fact that you're alive means, I'm alive, I could do mitzvahs. So I'm not so healthy. I can still make a bracha. I can still make kiddush. Person can be, dying, but they can still say amen to a bracha. You know what one amen is worth in the next world? Unbelievable. There's still God there. There's still Torah there. There's still good there. But it's not the good I wanted. Well, who says you know what's good for you? That takes bitachon, because there's a whole world out there that doesn't understand this. And now you have to go against the grain. That's where you got to look. Re'eh means look deeply. Okay, you got that idea? It's a very hard idea to come to, but it's very logical. So now Rabbi Nosson in the next source in Likutei Halachos, now he takes a new point that comes out of this. Now you're going to see what comes out of this. The practical advice. What Rabbi Nosson did, Rabbi Nachman said, take all my teachings that are very, we could say, abstract, and make them very relevant. And go through the code of Jewish law and show the relevance in actual Jewish law, these abstract concepts in Jewish law. And look at this interesting connection. Rabbi Nosson, his premier student, he asks a question. Why is it that people many times borrow money? Borrowing money. What is the reason for borrowing money? So look what he says in the Likutei Halachos. Borrowing comes from the perception that there are good days and bad days. A person borrows when he lacks parnasa now. And he hopes that after a few days he'll be able to pay back. This is because he thinks that now is a bad time, which is the reason for his, sorry I take very late at night, for his lack of parnasa. In other words, Rabbi Nosson is saying this idea that Rabbi Nachman says, that when there's a good day, take advantage, and when it's a bad day, you should look. He says, we have this concept, he says it in Yiddish. He says that there are people, die Zeit ist schlecht. It's a bad time now. It's a bad time, but I want to have certain things, and I guess Hashem isn't going to provide it for me, and I want to have it, so now I will borrow. So, it's a bad economy, you don't have money, you want to have something, And I hope, later I'll have the money to buy it. So now, why do you have to borrow? Because the Zeit is schlecht. I'm living in bad days. So I have to borrow until the bad days passes, and now good day passes. And when the good day comes, then I'll pay back the debt. So we borrow now in the bad days against the good days that will come. Rabbi Nachman was violently opposed to any form of borrowing, he told his students. He said, do it whatever you can, but don't even live in poverty. Do not borrow. He said, unless mamish, you're going to die. But anything short of dying, do not borrow. If it means you're living on a crust of bread, live on a crust of bread. Now that was his Hasidim. Not all Hasidim could have lived that way. Go through difficulties. He said, even work through the night. But don't borrow. Why? What's wrong with borrowing? This is the existential understanding. Because remember, what did we say? What's our main service as a Jew? Our main service is always to see the good that is in the days that are bad. We have to look. So if a Jew on a bad day, how are you supposed to act on a bad day when the money's not there? What are you supposed to say? You have to strengthen your emunah, even on that day. And you have to say, Hashem is here in this day too. And Hashem can take care of me. And Hashem is here. Hashem is here. And with a total belief that Hashem is taking your business down and nobody else, and you keep that conscious of Hashem, He will be able, Hashem, then you've triggered. Hashem says, that was I waiting to hear from you. And now I heard that, I'll give you enough to make it through the day. And therefore you really never have to come out to borrowing. And in other words, believing that today is only a bad day. And because it's a bad day, means Hashem couldn't take care of me today. And therefore I have to borrow. It's a wrong, defeatist attitude. And it forces you to borrow, and usually it means to borrow more and more and more. Now I'm not talking about, I want to make a few things clear. It means you should never take a mortgage on a house. No, I'm not talking about that. If you'd be paying rent $2,000 a month, and the mortgage is $2,000 a month, right? You're not what we call overextending yourself, right? I'm not saying you can't take a credit card because you get paid at the end of the month. I'm talking about people buying and say, how are you going to pay for it? I don't know. I'll worry about it later. Buying something well beyond what you need. You got a family of 4, you can live in a house that's 2,000 square feet, whatever. No, we have to have a 5,000 square foot home, right? And now I have to borrow heavy against that. And then I have to take risks in business to be able to pay for the money and this and that. And I don't have the money. You know what? If you don't have the money, it probably means you don't need it. Did you ever think of that? And if you need bread on the table, realize that you have to ask Hashem for the bread and not your boss, not anybody else, and He'll find a way. That's what living in Eretz Yisrael is all about. You don't know how these people make it. I don't know how they make it. And they make it. Still haven't found anybody who dies from starvation in the streets of Israel today. You did see a Jew sitting and dies, sitting in the street and is dead. Because they didn't have food? No. They may not have the lifestyle you would want. But they have so much more. Because they're always seeing the good in that day. They're always seeing Hashem. From somewhere all of a sudden something came. A delivery came, a check came, a this came, a that came. That is our avoda, is to see the good in the bad. And if a Jew during the bad day strengthens the emunah, and you could see that Hashem is really there, then He is. And the problem is that people look to other places and not to Hashem. If you believe Hashem is making things happening, then who are you going to deal with? You deal with Hashem. You pour your heart to Hashem out. You don't just, come to davening, or you don't come to davening. Or I'm rushing out down to go to work. You spend more time talking to Hashem. Hashem, you're the one who's making it happen. You're the one who's taking my business down. So I'm talking to you. And what do you want me to do? And I need your help. And I'm begging for help. And this is a good thing that I'm asking for you. Because I was so arrogant for the last 6 months. I thought I was the greatest businessman in the world. I forgot even to come to Shul anymore. Isn't that the most amazing thing? A good, frum Jew became successful in business, so successful, he had no time to daven. So Hashem did him a big favor. His business went under. Is that a favor or not? You tell me, Milton. Guy didn't talk to Hashem for 6 months because he's so darn rich. He has no godliness in his life. Is that good? Well, if you ask a secular person, wow, he's great. Ask a believing Jew, the guy's dead already. Spiritually dead. He says, I want to bring him back to life. If he loses his business, he'll be back in Shul. He will have talked to me. Is that a good day or a bad day? It's a good day. And somehow the guy will find a way to pay the bill. But if you got to borrow, what does borrowing mean? I'm not saying you can't borrow anything. But borrowing means Hashem has not provided for me today. Today is a bad day. That's the existential understanding of borrowing. If you take a loan, you're saying that Zeit is schlecht. Hashem's not taking good care of me today. And what I need to do, I have to take good care of myself by myself, and I'm going to take a loan. It's interesting, the Hebrew word for a loan is halva'ah. Halva'ah means a loan. It's the same word as halavai. What does halavai mean? If only it was. In other words, when you borrow, you're saying, if only the good days would come back. Halavai, the good days would come back. I'm borrowing against the good days. Today's not a good day. You know why it's not a good day? Hashem didn't give me what I wanted. He says, it looks like it's a bad day. Now take a deeper look and you'll find it's a good day. Look. You got to work. Go through this mental activity. Go save yourself. Go review the fundamentals of Judaism. You got to do this every day.